I apologize for
I'm in the middle. Hi, everyone. I'm in the middle of a rant. So I was just talking about how the problem of how did I say that? I said something really smart a minute ago. Empathizing versus systematizing. So you could sort of understand women, but women can't understand men at all. And it's because the temporal experiential empathizing can't systematize. And but the systematizing can, because we're human, can vaguely sort of get, we can't live the wife of a woman, but we can sort of get what that means, right? We can imagine it because it's basically being childish. I mean, we've been through it.
that. We did that.
We did that. So the problem is, Larry Summers, I'm saying, I'm just commenting that Daniel and Martin are like the wood chippers of intellectual history. They're plowing through this vast reading. I mean, we have an enormous library and reading list, right, of all this stuff, right? And they're plowing through it, and I can't remember if it was Martin or Daniel that said they'd finished Eleanor Ostrom, and all she was saying was X. Well, and I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, Eleanor Ostrom tried to create a formal logic of the commons, and she did. This is important, though, because it's still empirical. It's not theoretical. And what does theoretical mean? It means systematizing. So despite trying for over 70 years now, we can't find a single woman who can systematize. In other words, we can't find a single one. But despite all the privileges we've given women. So like Larry Summers got fired from Harvard for saying the truth is, no, the truth is if you just had the best candidates, there wouldn't be any women teachers. We're professors. But we have to communicate with the female audience, so that happens. And fortunately, that's one of the reasons education gets dumbed down, is because it has to be converted from abstract systematizing to verbal analogy. Am I really offending you now? Because
No. It's pushing the envelope, though.
All
You're
right.
getting there.
All right. It's just what a division of labor is the issue is all the extreme is systematizing because it's just obvious. So anyway, you get to Larry gets converse as well. We've known for decades. I mean, certainly before whenever he said that, because I knew about it in the 80s. That we cannot find women who can systematize, despite looking. We can't find women who can theorize. It just doesn't happen. Now, you'd think, this is my point here, that one of my subtle points that the lack of exceptions validates the general rule, is that, yeah, personalities are baited. In other words, we could call that gender, right? But sex isn't. Sex is constructed. And so the problem you get into with cognition is that even the most analytic females, in other words, the least emotional females, even the least emotional and lesbian females, right? Which is, I'm thinking of a particular woman we both admire. They can understand and communicate, which is what we sort of think of as the 130s, the general 135 to 145 capacity of being able to synthesize and communicate, but they can't theorize. And even if we get women with higher IQs, what we get is verbal acuity in pictures, like Einstein. We don't get systematizing, theorizing. And so we just don't find it.
And it's a lack of empirically, we just don't find it.
We just can't, and we want to. I mean, you have the entire edifice.
Everybody's looking,
trying to find some woman to do at least one, right? But you find the same thing in gay men. Is that it doesn't matter that their sex, I'm going to try to use there are two sexes, but I'll say gender is fluid. How about that? There are two sexes and gender is fluid. Gender being we'll modify that. The world is trying to modify that term
Yes.
So to express the distribution. So there are two poles to gender, which because there are two sexes, and there's a distribution of it. However, this only applies to personality or sex drives. It doesn't apply to cognition. In other words, you don't find gay men who think like women, only they just feel like women. You don't find women who think like men, they just feel more like men, right? They experience more analytic or less empathic, and the men feel more empathic and less analytic. And so you get the same behavior. So this is again just obvious, rather obvious if you understand neurology, which I was working on this morning. I was working on the cone of the neuronal exploration, and the minute it gets down to charges, I'm like, the minute it gets down to charges is too much detail for the average person. How do I narrate this so that because the minute you get down to sodium ions, right? I mean, it's like putting math into a book. You're not allowed to put math.
Not that much math.
You can put graphs, but you can't put math. It's the same thing with what we do. I can put behaviors, and I can sort of say plus and minus or more and less. But the minute I bring up an ion or a part of charge, for fuck it over, right? I mean, it's just like they're just gonna stop reading, right?
It's just flip the table.
All right, and I'm like, I can't, and it's not necessary. I've only got out, even then, when they go to that level, the people who study this is a great example. The people who study this, they lose the forest for the weeds when they say, well, it's this kind of thing that it's the cone is sensing, right? Because why do some nerves go all the way across your fucking brain and some of them just stay local? I mean, well, there's a reason for that, right? I mean, we just don't know what it is yet, right? But given that your entire nervous system is built on one fucking trivial algorithm, okay, what's causing the difference in growth, right?
That's a good question.
Right, I mean, it's just like, well, the answer is probably the environment, and the environment is probably caused by like 1,000, or 10,000 SMPs or something. It's something clown worldy, right? I mean, it's just so fucking complicated we can't imagine, but we probably can get it down to a general rule of. So I'm trying to find out what general rule can I use to explain why neurons are baited into growing different sizes and differences in different locations at different times of development, because that's really how the brain gets wired. And I'm trying to figure out, can I go into this topic?
Right. I think that's a reasonable question.
Can I even cover it without making the problem worse?
Right.
I mean, like I'm really like, because I got this in my in my videos on the brain. Like there's parts that people can follow, and then I get into the neurons, and I tried really hard to, like, there's like 3 kinds of neurons. It's like, it's up here, it's down there, or it's in the middle. I mean,
right.
What are you trying to do? Send stuff a long way, collect stuff locally, or make a decision? I mean, it's just really, which is really inhibit. So I mean, right, and then they either like make stuff work or they stop shit from working, and then the rest of it's just really a neuron, basically a neural column, is like a broadcasting antenna.
Yep.
Right, and it's doing it through chemistry. And so this chemistry is being broadcast, and the neurons, like in dendrites, they're trying to, like, who can I have sex with here? Who wants to mate? Right? Who's having the same rhythm I got? Or I mean, right? And you can explain it at that level, but I can't.
You're looking at a big chasm. It's like, kind of build a bridge across that.
Yeah. I mean, how do I create an operational model that's valuable? Right? I mean, that's valuable for an operational explanation of the brain and experience. And I'm like, I don't know, fuck it, man. I got to figure out a way to fucking talk about this, because really, it's fucking magic. No, really, it's magical.
It's pretty amazing.
It's
for a
just,
simple thing.
wow.
It's
Well,
simple, but it's
but
amazing.
it isn't still, you say, you look at what ants do. But if
Right.
you look at a neuron does and what ants do, it's the same fucking thing, exactly the same fucking thing.
I want you to know there's ants that make they have a big parade every day. These little piss ants at my house every day. They walk like just trains of them. And I'm like, I appreciate them after having had this analogy
Yes.
brought to my attention and watch what they do.
Somebody I worked in a store in college, right? And somebody had left a piece of sugar cookie, like it had fallen off the edge of a counter onto the floor. And I come in the morning, and I'm trying to fill the cash register, right? Because you keep the cash in back and you bring it out and you put the right. And then look, something's bothering me. I look down and there's this fucking ants, and I look at they go over to this. What? Oh, it's a piece of cookie, and there's this. They're like 4 or 5 wide. They go like 80 feet across the store through this little hole gap in the door, right? Out along the side of the building and halfway down the fucking building. And I'm like, Jesus Christ,
It's amazing that they
it's
could find it,
amazing.
right? They found it. They found it, and then they systematized the destruction of it to bring it back to house.
It's like, God damn, that's so cool. You know, the problem with bees, what bees do is just as cool too. We just can't, it's hard to observe.
Oh yeah.
It's just too hard to see. You know, you can't, and their whole shaky busy thing.
They give a dance to tell other ones how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fucking insane. Life is fascinating, but I mean, anyway, the point being that neurons.
It is. The neurons are doing the same thing, and it's like even more. It's more plant-like. It's simplicity.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like that. Just this is that. Thank you. That was fucking brilliant. I'm gonna kiss you for that. So, what is a plant's root system do? Same fucking
doing
thing.
something. It's doing
Well,
something.
it's the same goddamn algorithm, right? I mean, so the difference is that how fast can a plant convert energy, and versus how fast can a neuron convert energy, right? Which is it's in the a thing that eats, especially meat, has a lot of available energy. A thing that can process oxygen, like we do, has way more fucking energy. So of course the neuron's going to be able to grow faster, right? I mean, it just whatever it is, right?
Like you said, they're like antennas, and they're FM frequency modulating antennas. Yes. That's what they do. They're just
and so that's why columns, microcolumn. There's because this is one of the goofy things in neurology, right? Is that they call a column. Well, you're talking about a pyramid neuron. You're talking about a mini column, which is a collection of neurons that run this process. Or you're talking about a macro column, which is a collection of mini columns, right? I mean, and so I'm like, well, so a column. I usually use mini column because that's the basic structure. In other words, that's that's necessary. These have 80 or more neurons in them and such. And so these things do an amazing fucking job, right? But it's all prediction. They're looking for a sequence, right? And we thought it was like comparing something. It's not. It's recursive. So they're looking for a sequence of charges, right? That are coherent, not. And that's why we always think there's an observer in the brain. There isn't. The only observer is prediction. So if
they're seeking a frequency, is what you're saying?
Frequency could be too easily misinterpreted. They're just searching a sequence, and yeah, there's a limit to the time span of the sequence they can perceive. Which I have a great video on how easy it is to fool the brain. It really annoys me because apparently I'm fooled a lot easier than a lot of people. So it's probably I have an old brain, but
oh my,
no, I mean certain genes are adapted to do better things, and I'm quite well aware that the hunter-gatherer part of my genome is the dominant, and I just have to live with that and the hairy chest. So anyway, where am I going? So the neuron is absolutely fascinating, but it's the same algorithm, whether it's plants, neurons, or ants. right? And you could argue that so is learning, right? But so are our road networks, so are our cooperation schemes. It's the same fucking algorithm. It's like, is there something here I can eat? Right, or is there some
Right.
charge I can get to? It's just, and what is this, right? It's you and me. Want. That's all we're doing. We're walking through the world saying I want,
So
right?
wait. So is it the column is doing something like that?
Yeah, it is. Well, and that's why their columns are separated. It's so that there is space between them. So you have to be, there's a tendency to work internally, but you still can cross externally, but it's got to be good. Right. And so that's why micro columns work together with columns, work together with regions to be able to decompose very complex systems through parallel processing. So anyway, so I got on this for a reason.
Right.
I'm working on this morning so that I can it's this. Oh, I know. The problem is, how do you reduce a story? Right? How do I make a story that is, my internet is unstable. How do I make a story that is sufficiently unambiguous that false inferences can't be drawn from it? Which is the fucking problem, right? With fitting. How do I overcome fitting, yet not get down into the point where it's, you get charges, chemistry, and mathematics, where people turn off because now you've exceeded the limit of their empathizing and sympathizing, which is their ability to reason without special skills. And some of the problem with having those special skills, charges and chemistry and math, is you begin to think that's the model of the world, right? So you begin to bias in favor of charge, chemistry, and mathematics. It should be math, charge, and chemistry, right?
Right.
You begin to bias in favor of that model instead of the operational. It's one of the things you notice with talking about proteins. Look, dude, they're fucking machines. They're electrical machines, right? They're little widgets that do electrical things, right? That move molecules around.
Crazy things,
That's
man.
all. They're fucking, the fact that they do anything, given what they look like, the disordered chaos that they result, is a fucking miracle. But they do. They make machines. God knows why.
Wait,
So
predictable operational machines.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is how do you make that? And you brought this up the other day, is that a protein can use this kind of machine, but in another environment, it's like transmission. It goes, and then all of a sudden it does something different, right? I mean,
right.
It's like that fucking demon box in like Hellraiser, it just. I don't know. I thought I could throw in some humor there. Maybe it didn't work. But I mean, you just switch this thing around and all of a sudden it conjures something up from another dimension. Well, I mean, proteins are sort of like that. They're like, well, you think they're going well, it must do one thing. No, God knows how many things.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating because they find that they're variations on single molecules that go across species for 1 million years, and they're doing all kind of different things. The same molecule. It's wow.
It's fascinating. So so my point was, believe it or not, there was one. I sometimes lose whatever point it was going to be, but today, believe it or not, for some sort of accident of fate, I remember that the problem we face is telling a story.
Yes.
Which gets me back to what I was working on, which is what we left off with yesterday, which is, how do we tell the story? What you convinced me yesterday was that we could tell the story without making people like your wife heads explode.
I think so.
Well, at least we can get some of them to not explode.
Enough
of their heads to not explode. And we can do it with overwhelming, it's the wrong word. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Right. So like ironclad proofs.
Right. And so what we're writing is operational proofs, right? And that's the problem. What is the point of parsimony before we re-enter ambiguity? And it's whatever the minimum operational
Right.
explanation is before you introduce ambiguity with attempts at greater precision. And that's always going to be something that's an analogy, what we would call reducible to analogy to experience.
Right.
And so that's what we're trying to accomplish. So that's what I was working on this morning before we started.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, because I've written the introduction, like I said, a whole bunch of ways. Yesterday, he convinced me that, again, it's possible to do without making heads explode. There's a great TV show, apparently. I don't watch like TV shows, right? I mean, it's pretty much movies. So I watch, and I don't really watch them. I sort of have them I have them over there like white noise while I'm
Operating in the background.
I have them in the background while I do this, and once in a while I might actually watch one. It's very interesting. But there's this show apparently, because back in the 80s there was this movie called Scanners, where
Yes.
people's head exploded, and
Yes.
it was so perfect 80s movie, right? It was just the perfect 80s. It was hysterical, right? Watching these guys' heads explode, right? And
Right.
and so they put this in a movie, no, a show called The Boys or something like that. I don't know what I'm probably going to sound like I'm probably admitting my cultural ignorance, which if it isn't obvious by now, right? It should be obvious to anyone.
Oh, my.
But for some reason, a clip showed up on, I don't know, Twitter or something, of heads exploding. And there's this great episode. I guess there's this episode of this show. I happen to remember that it's season 2, episode 7. I think that's what it is. I don't know why that stuck in my head for some reason. Probably something that was in the text. And it's like a whole courtroom, and these guys are walking around a courtroom, and people's heads keep exploding. And I'm like, that's exactly what I envision when I see liberals reading my
Right. Pow. It's overloaded. Yeah. That's kind of what it is. It's they free associate and they'll go off.
Well, because they're assumed they're trying to empathize. They're trying to say you could only think this way if you feel that way, right? So they're putting the feel before the think. And I'm like, no, we don't work that way. We work like, what is the think, and then we decide whether how to deal with the feel, right? I mean,
process the feel, man, and make it so that it's acceptable,
right? I mean, we just got to figure out. Well, that feel is it true, possible, and good, right? We're trying to figure that out. Is it true, possible, and good?
in that order.
In that order, is it true, possible, and good? Well, I mean, that's not that's just epistemology, right?
It's interesting. It's like a question, right?
Right. And so we're just trying to figure out those 3 things. Afterwards, then you feel about what's the emotion about it. Well, your emotion is simply a measure of the delta between your existing weights, values, and measures, and that set of weights, values, and measures. In other words, your emotion is just the cost of adaptive change.
Right.
And whether that's a gain or loss for you, or an anticipated gain or loss for you. But if it's true, possible, and good, we've already decided that it's a possible gain, at least for somebody. And depends on the scale. When I say true, possible, and good, it's a political statement. If you want to make it a universal statement, it's true, possible, preferable, and good. As a preferable is an individual thing, and good is a collective thing, collective domain. I got to stop using thing. I got to stop saying right. I got to decloak. I spent all these years since I was 25 trying to not use big words and to sound like an ordinary person. Now I got to turn it all off again.
Paradoxical, huh?
It's just life.
But it goes to this, the cost. There's a cost involved. It's just a pain.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Oh, that and the self-monitoring, it's like, okay, it's just a lot. It would be one thing if I was like self-monitoring a discussion over whether I would like the shrimp or the beef beef pho, I mean, that would be okay, but I've already got like 6,000 things in my head and I'm trying to make sure I don't say something wrong, stupid, or offensive. Right. I mean, it's just like there's only so many threads I can run at the same time.
It's a crowded space.
Oh, it's just I gotta watch out and make sure I gotta make sure I'm modifying my behavior at the same time. Anyway,
all right.
so what was I was making a point there and I lost it again.
True, possible, preferable, good. Emotional.
Oh, heads exploding.
Yes.
Right. So the problem is the female empathizing mind, the feminine
Thank you.
empathizing mind tends to see experience first, which is a resistance to adaptation, and a resistance to responsibility, because responsibility for self conflict is expensive. Monitoring is a violation of their desire to just feel, and imposition of enforcing. And then even if you make yourself self-regulate, the responsibility for making others regulate, like you would your children, but which is in course imposing a cost on others, is a responsibility they seek to avoid. So once you understand how the female mind only works to avoid responsibility, or to narrowly limit, basically to the
well, they have to.
Right.
They have to, because it's like it's too much cost, too much emotional cost. Can't bear the cost.
Right. And it makes sense because they need to have that sensitivity in order to make sure children don't do anything profoundly stupid, which they are wont to do at all times at every opportunity.
You're trying to die. Stop it. Not on mom's watch.
Especially, it's like the 3-year-olds are I'm like, are you trying to get killed? Because since you've been able to get on 2 feet, it seems like you're trying to kill yourself.
Wow. It's like there's things to burn myself on.
Yeah.
To electrocute myself with.
To topple onto myself, to
oh
fall off of, to run out in front of. Pointy things. To fall on, to trip over. Anyway, that was such a fun little visual journey there.
So it is interesting. So it's this. So the interesting function is the heads exploding goes to this. They're going to see this. They're going to see this equation, which is the true, possible, preferable, good. But they get short-circuited along the way. The only way that you could think that is if you feel like that. Yes.
And so that's what they get. And they're like, you think we feel that? No, we don't feel that. Matter of fact, you can't imagine how little we feel, honestly. That's what makes us different, is that you amplify feels and we amplify reals. Right? And that's what makes the difference between us. That's how we divide the labor. So, what the answer is I used to tell people this in business. You worry about whether every step is, this happens when you have to manage a lot of women, even though they're smart women. You keep thinking about how we feel about every step, instead of saying, what is the field of opportunities? Are they possible? Right? What's the cost of them?
Right.
And the return. And then how do we feel about the consequences? And can we tolerate the process and consequences? You don't pick the easiest thing. You pick the thing that's a balance between costs and consequences.
Yes.
And so trying to get, it's not hard to teach men that if you do it on a whiteboard enough times.
Okay. Right.
At least half of them will get it the first time. But try to teach it to women.
That was a sad tone, man. The vibration changed markedly. That was a
Well, it's,
sympathetic.
it's always some women sit there and they go through my money talk and they basically understand it,
Okay.
right? But then you get guys, the guys sit there and like, dude, I have a master's degree, and I don't think I got more information about the world in the past 3 hour speech than I got in 5 years of college, right? That was something I would hear once in a while, right? Because you really can explain you can explain business in 3 hours, all of it, and it's just a very simple algorithm.
It's operational.
And they don't get, and nobody knows it, right? It's so obvious, and they don't. How can you get out of like ninth grade and not know that the universal algorithm for operating a business, right? It's just there's only these variables in the end, and these numbers, and you get and this is these are the problems you face, right? And that's why your little market on the corner that sells gas and cigarettes and milk and whatever, right? They have all that shit in there. The real answer is they make their money on the milk and the cigarettes, right? Right. And what do they make a profit? No, the whole point is they don't have to make a profit or pay taxes, because all they're really trying to do is buy the lot. Because
real estate, right?
Right. Because all it's trying to do is buy the lot, because the lot is a corner, and a corner is the most valuable piece of local property. So what you're trying to do is essentially do a long-term investment upfront, right? That pays for itself along the way, right? That produces an appreciation in the highest valuable land in the area, right? The opposite is restaurants, right? You've got to pay off a restaurant in 5 years, maximum 7. The reason is because if you don't refresh the rest of the entire thing every 5 to 7 years, you're basically running down the clock on your business and going into debt. And so what you find people do is, if they have everybody who wins in a restaurant business buys the fucking building.
Yes.
That's it. I mean, that's the whole point. You're trying to buy if you can't buy the building,
right?
You're basically
strategy. It's a strategy, right?
And so you can look at it. So what I try to show is, yeah, you think about Apple and Microsoft, and here's how much each of them makes per employee. Now let's look at Twitter, what they make per employee. What a shit business, right? I mean, sorry. I mean, but really, that's a great one. But those are outliers. But forget that most businesses are down there with your 0.1% gas station.
That's right.
Your 1% grocery market.
Razor margins,
These
right?
razor thin margins that are only possible. You wonder why there's a Walgreens or a Walmart, because you have to have that scale. Because 1% of a billion is a lot of fucking money.
Heads up.
Right. Then once you get into capital markets, then you have no funding costs, whereas most of your costs are actually bank costs, the cost of money. You get a capital market, all of a sudden your bank costs go to nothing. Matter of fact, what you're always trying to do is, I need to borrow from the bank to keep my taxes lower.
Right.
Right. I mean, I got to acquire stuff so my taxes go down, because I'll potentially get it for free. I'm going down a rat hole again, but it's usually
that's okay.
There's
a guy he's doing this thing. It's replace your mortgage, replaceyouruniversity.com. He's doing some creative bank work to minimize your tax burdens. I'm liking it.
Yeah, my whole attitude was, if I want to make more money, I'll just work. It's not I can invest in making my mind in more profit, or I can invest my mind in saving.
That's right.
And
I'm like you are.
Work on it, the saving you only should be thinking about saving, right, if you have no other choice. But what you really want to do is, how can I make more? And how can I make more, especially by learning something rather than spending more time? What are you doing? What are you laughing about?
The limit that I came up to this morning, so I was kind of tired before we started working, and it's like I was working, and I'm I'm listening to the people and they're just annoying me. The noises were just getting on my nerves. I'm like, okay, I think I'm hitting my limit.
Yeah.
It's like the background noises and it's just noisy and
Yeah.
you're talking too much about nothing that's interesting to me to get job done. It's like, okay, I think I just need to take a nap.
I always wonder that about like in sales. I never get tired of the game. I get tired of the product, so to speak.
Right.
Right. So you just change what you're selling and it goes back to being fucking interesting again. And the truth is, as long as you're moving up the value chain and you need to not get fat and you need to still look good, right? It's that simple. Then it still stays fun. But can you, I mean, I'm like, can you imagine being I'm trying to imagine being a doctor. I mean, I just couldn't put up with listening to that many people's complaints every day. Right? Go ahead and we imagine being a therapist. You're listening to crazy people's thoughts.
Now, to me, this is interesting. Is like the yeah. I find it interesting. It's like this. The function of being a doctor is the interesting part is that you establish relationships with people that are. It's kind of interesting.
Yes.
You get to know the individual.
Yes.
And you're trying to help them. And you can see patterns there that they might not otherwise see that will be helpful to us to find out. But it's like the online work is like all de novo people. And like I saw 16
and
people.
It's not like a problem you've got to take home and work on for 6 weeks.
No, it's done.
Right.
It's just done.
I guess that's
and
it.
It's like, and it's a 3-minute problem. Sometimes it takes 10 minutes because the person has to talk to me about something or there's some nuance there that they are need to have ironed out in their head.
So in my business, it means I got to get on a plane, go to a hotel. I got to interview you, 50 people at your fucking company, run a bunch of meetings, and spend the next 6 weeks thinking about it so I can get my check. And it's too all encompassing.
It's a big job, a lot of work.
Too much. Like I don't. If I just have, if I have to run a strategy session and write a report, I can do that in a couple of weeks, and it's social, like you're talking about. But the minute I got to get into like numbers and budgets and forecasts and models, and you just, it's like, okay, I just gave up a month or 6 weeks of my life for this $1 million or whatever, sometimes $100,000. And it's like, am I happier, better? I only made the company money, and I get really tired of it. And what I really get tired of, I don't know if this happens in your business, is when you tell people the right answer and they know it's the right answer, and they do the wrong thing anyway.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I gave up. I'm thinking of a couple companies that are quite public right now that paid that price, and I'm like, what can I fucking say, right? I mean, I wasted my time.
We say pearls before swine. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's true, but it would be one thing if like our work, right? This is a pearl, but the fucking pearl is going to last for 1,000 years, right? Right? It's not a waste of my time, right?
Not at all.
Right. But when you tell XYZ Fortune, something company, this is what's actually wrong, and the board's got to fix it because you're part of the problem. Your compensation structure is producing this result. Your business model is dependent on this, and it's fragile. And you keep moving from fragile to fragile, and I can see by this point you're going to go out. So here's how I'd restructure your business. And of course, my problem is, how do I present this online? Because one of the reasons I try to do my work is I try to say, whenever you put something on the website, right, it's essentially a contract with the customer. This brand is. And so, right. So you can try to sell something in your company, or you can bypass your whole fucking staff by making your website make the promise and then hold them to it. Right? I mean, it's sort of like the law, right? How I view the law, right? You put the law in place and you hold people to it. It's the same thing as taking the website. It's just your
science,
business process, and you just make your staff adhere to it and modify your business. So I see the business structure that's promised and how you interact with customers as transforming your business rather than trying to just transform your business from within. Right. So I see websites. I saw websites as an operational advantage. Now, at some companies, that's incredibly successful. I mean, I bring up the account of one of the fitness companies that the founder broke into tears, right? He was just so blown away, right? Then you have a Fortune 500 company, and you tell them the right answer, and they do like 10% of it, and eventually the company starts to decline. Or you go and you do it to, a Fortune 100 company, and you're talking to the CEO and whatever, and it's the right fucking answer. And and then you talk to the other guys who run all the ad agencies and other consultancies around the world, the big ones, right? I'm a little guy, right?
Yep.
There's really big guys, but I happen to know more about this particular client's internals than anything else, and I understand the problem, right? As well or better. And we all just sit around in this fucking meeting that we're by accidents. It's like, there's like Kurt, we told him, he told him, yeah, I told him too. Right. And the answer is they just don't want to change.
This is it. That goes to it's like therapy, right? For a business.
I think of it that way.
It's like the most important thing is the light bulb really needs to want to change itself.
Well, and that's the answer. And unfortunately, we brought this up yesterday, which I reviewed last night in our video last night from yesterday, is that the idea that you have to crash before you're willing to pay, there's an intersection of your willingness to crash before your willingness to change.
That's it.
And one of the things I liked about
supply demand function, yeah.
Yeah. What I liked about Gates was that if you had an argument about where the market was going and that something had a change in the argument, he'd read the fucking thing. He actually had a thing where you could submit papers to him every year, and he fucking read the things. I mean, I'm sure other people filtered it down so that he got the top 1% of them, whatever. But I mean, and he would just change if he found that somebody was right, he'd change the company. The problem was after Gates, it went the opposite direction.
Ossification.
And well, I mean, it's just Gates versus Ballmer. Gates actually understood the technology, and so we could see. I mean, the classical example, what most people know, is when they had to come out with DirectX, or they'd get creamed by the competitors, because Microsoft generally would fall behind, right? Because that's what you do when you have a big network effect, because you tend to play the dilemma and fall behind. But Gates was really sensitive to threats, and so he would take it. But you look at somebody else who fell behind, Mozilla and those guys, they weren't sensitive enough to threats. And the problem with my view with Ballmer and many other people is that he wasn't sensitive enough to threats because he didn't understand them. And so he focused too much on the business and operating the business for profit. And meanwhile, he almost killed the company, really. I mean, he could have killed the company. I was saying he was killing it. You could at least you could say that to him. It was kind of interesting. You could say harsh stuff to him, and he had balls. And so when I criticize him, it's not that he was incompetent or anything. It's just that he chose to work with his strengths. And I know why, is because they got this fucking twisted thing in their head that they had, and it came from Gates, that they only had a 10-year window.
Okay.
And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Right? The only reason you're going to lose that network effect is because you're too stupid to hold it. I mean, you have to fuck this up. I mean, like, Apple's easy to kill. You kill the iPhone and Apple's dead, right? And that's possible. Google's easy to kill. You actually produce search results that people want. There's no opportunity for advertising, right? I mean, I wrote that back in fucking 2006. I think I wrote that piece. Yeah, it was early. It was 2006. And so those are really easy pieces, right, to understand. So I'm like, how do you kill a network effect like Microsoft? I mean, it's like, Ballmer was practically trying. Partly because I think he believed that there was only so much runway. And yet we had people like, we had other people in the industry who made the routers, who should go unnamed, and computers, and they thought they had a lot of runway.
Hmm.
So, I mean, no. The reason you can't displace Microsoft is it's hard to defeat Excel. That's
Yeah.
I know how. I mean, I know how to defeat the entire Microsoft stack, but you can't do it with a 6-month startup. Right? It's a 5-year problem. Maybe, right? And what investor other than the government is going to spend 5 or 10 years to produce this?
Ah.
So my view is it can't. It's when I saw Elon come up with the everything app. I assumed he was thinking about my app, something like my app, Oversing. And he wasn't. He was just thinking more like WeChat. I'm like, oh, that's fucking lame. Right? The everything app destroys Microsoft, destroys Google, because the everything app is possible. Right? It's something I know because I've designed it. The problem is I spent 3 or 4 years in development, and
Okay.
I only got it to beta stage.
Okay.
Right? And it would need 5 more years of work to complete the whole vision. All right. I mean, so that's the problem with producing a generational leap at this point in technology, is you have to find a revenue stream that keeps you alive long enough to do 10 years worth of work, where you don't get so attracted by maintaining that revenue stream that you fall into the innovator's dilemma of not completing the vision.
So we need to buy the corner lot and get our razor thin margin to make it work.
Yeah, you
buy the real
stay on
estate.
message. I mean, to some degree, Facebook did that. They weren't making, they just were living on hope. But they burned the company already. They burned the company already. This kind of makes sense, right? I mean, who isn't on Facebook? The people that can't be and don't want to be. Well, I mean, you're a great example, but they've got, I mean, you just do a population analysis of who's got internet in the world, right?
Right.
And who has anything to gain from it, like people over 12 and under 80 or something, right? I mean, and you just say, wow, there's only 500 million people available for Facebook to get. Of course they can't grow anymore.
Right.
So the question is, can they add features? Can they re-envision the company? He went the absolute wrong fucking direction. And with this meta. And I'm like, how I thought you guys were smart. How could you get it that wrong? I don't understand. How could you fuck this up? I understood, Microsoft fucked up Vista, partly what my product solves, right? I understood the mistake they were making because it was a logical mistake, right? They just weren't. They were thinking that they weren't envisioning a future where the internet was providing as much backbone, in other words, enough processing power and data storage. They were still thinking about a little too much about the desktop and the file system. They weren't thinking of what?
It's quite interesting because it's like the technology has changed so fast.
Yeah, but it wasn't unpredictable. It was really obvious. That's the thing. Excuse me. It was really obvious to me, right? Because the pattern is really obvious through all of history, right? I mean, there's no technological advantage because technology can always be adopted. There's only a customer advantage. The whole trick is that you get customers habituated. Customers are the friction, not technology. It's just not hard. So the problem is creating a revenue stream to produce enough value to cause customers to pay a switching cost.
That's it.
For Microsoft, it's almost impossible. No, to attack
Is it-
Microsoft. My
This is
product would attack. No, no. The point is, I can attack Microsoft. I did it. I mean, I said that was what I was going to do, and I can do it. I mean, I'm just getting. I got sick, and I'm getting older, right? But I mean, to
Yeah.
knowing what to do isn't the problem. It's financing it,
That's right.
right? And financing it when the investment horizon of an investor, they're looking for $1 billion win in X number of years. And you've got, and it's just math, right? I mean, that's what they're looking for. So the problem is you can produce $100 billion win in Y years, but you may not be able to produce the $100 billion win anymore in X years. It may take, which is what I mean, you must push capital out in order to return each increment of investment. Now that what changes is that the only variable that ever changes is distance. In other words, all increases in what we call wealth, productivity, and cooperation are due with compression, space-time compression. So
Right.
cities have lower opportunity costs, etc. Well, railroads, telecommunication roads, but the internet and global and airplane delivery. I mean, it's
eliminated that.
You've eliminated. So how do you decrease time space now? Well, you have to go to prediction. In order to predict, you need to have behavior, and to have behavior, you need a system of measurement. So the problem is they're looking at the future of the technology space is quite predictable if you understand those basic principles.
Right.
And so it was, even then we knew, I mean, it was.
I'm going to tie this back a little bit. This is discussion about businesses is just the same discussion that we were having a momentarily ago about neurons, and
same algorithm.
heads exploding, because it comes down to the costs, the emotional costs associated with adaptation versus non-adaptation.
And the fact that you must always be seeking to understand the horizon of your actions, because that's what we're always doing, right? We're always compressing time in order to make a profit.
We're doing a metric. We're using our mind and our language to determine how hard is it going to be to bridge the gap. Correct.
And through most of history, this is important. What you're trying to do is, if you discover an opportunity, you're trying to maximize your ability to exploit it. That's what the government does, right? The people in the government maximize their opportunity for exploitation of the population. The financial sector does. They maximize their opportunity for exploitation of the population. The problem is, an entrepreneur who does that at this rate of development is dead. You're trying to optimize your opportunity for innovation. Apple's M1 chip. I mean, they blew their tech stack from 2012 or 14 all the way up to 2019. 5 years. They rode on the iPhone because it took that long to make a chip that could actually solve the hard problem of computing, which is their M1 chip, which is, the thing runs on 5 fucking volts. I mean, that's like inventing, in the computer terms, that's like inventing nuclear reactors. I mean, it's fucking amazing, right? And so, you look at that and you're like, wow, they did that, but they burned it. But how come they could burn that? The difference is they did. How many other people will do that? Other than Apple, what's his name? Fucking that's Musk's whole strategy.
How so? What? I don't understand the strategy.
His whole strategy is, I have to make a leap here that other companies can't do in their investment cycle, because their shareholders will object to it.
It's the investment cycle is like the OODA loop for business.
Correct. And so you have to get inside. So the problem is you want to get inside someone's OODA loop. Well, that sounds like shortening time, but what it actually is it's getting more time to leapfrog them, because these car companies, they have entrenched relationships, bureaucracies, beliefs, ideas, and whatever. You know, Microsoft, I used to complain.
Inertia, right.
What?
It's inertia. It's like
Well, it's just,
cultural
no,
inertia.
it's called stickiness in economics.
Okay.
So things are, so existing networks are sticky. Just like your neurons are sticky.
Yes.
And you've got to produce enough charge to cause them to reorganize. You got to produce enough cookie over here so that the ants will chase that cookie instead. I mean, I don't know what another analogy is. You got to put enough of nitrogen over here so the tree will first grow roots in that direction. My father used to have a hysterical, used to play that game with trees. I thought it was hysterical. He'd like put nitrogen over here and nitrogen over there and say, watch what happens, and then move it here.
Playing
You know,
games with trees.
you
Man,
know,
that's awesome.
so oh, I guess if you're him, it's his version of being cunning. But to me, all I was thinking about, Dad, every time you do this, it makes the grass grow around the fucking tree 5 times as fast as the rest of the yard, and I got to mow the lawn more on. That's all I thought about.
Different OODA loop. That
Anyway.
wasn't his problem.
Fuck. Anyway, so yeah, it's the same algorithm. We are tying this all together quite nicely, honestly. But the problem is that only the government, at some point, only the government can pay the investment cycle. So you got to think about how hard it is. I mean, you'd have to know venture capitalist firms,
Right.
but it's like trying to get your relatives at the dinner table to agree on a pull. It's just like that. Because it's a bunch of people who all have money and clients, right? Because that's who you don't invest I mean, some people invest their own money, but a lot of the time you're investing client money.
That's right.
And so you've got everybody at the table has a bunch of clients they have obligations to and weights and everybody at the table has a far more, not everybody, there's a whole lot of people at that table who have a far greater belief in their competency than is demonstrable. Right? So that's okay because most of them finally get out to the fact that we're gambling. It's a numbers.
That's
That's what's happening. And so your goal in that business is to get to where you have enough capital that you can afford to play the numbers game because you're only going to win 1 in 10 or 20 or whatever. Right?
Okay. Right.
And so it's just kind of hard. So you got to go back and what does Elon have to do? You saw what he did. If you saw the leaks, the stuff that was released, he just fucking sends a tweet or a message to Larry Ellison and says, "You in for a couple billion on this? Somebody else, you want in for $1 billion?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah." I mean, that's a very different way of raising money than your average firm does, or your investment bank, right? They've got clients and they've got goals and whatever. And so, the problem is at some point you get to the point where there's no Elons. Because you don't see it. You don't see
that. That's too ambiguous. No Elons. What is
no engineers or scientists who have enough access to capital to bypass the administrative structure that inhibits innovation, not only because of the clientele network that they have, but because and the decision costs that it puts in place, but their mere competency. And so the problem is, and other people have said this, the problem is engineers make the difference because engineers turn science into products.
That's right. They operationalize it.
And so who said this? Lex Friedman says he's ending his relationship with Boston Dynamics because it's begun to be that. When the minute you are inhibiting engineers by marketing and administration, in other words, revenue and administration, what you're doing is you're killing the company. And so if you look in our history, or this is the same thing that's gone. Hold on, let me tie it.
Sorry,
tying it to credentialism. That's what's you might have been going there. That's the same problem that's happened in government. Is that instead of having people who are from the military and industry and running government, we have credentialists running government. It's the same problem as people in the investment sector not being business sector, not being engineers, and the same thing in the investment sector as people not being engineers, because at this point, all products are engineering.
Well, it's like it goes to I was gonna tie it to medicine, because it's like revenue and admin are essentially resistance, impedance. And it's like, and it is credentialed people that are not engineers. And in the case of medicine, it's not physicians.
Medicine in America is run by four big insurance companies. Period. End of story. That's who the government is for Medicare care. Now, the truth is, as someone who has been under medical care, because I have a lot of health issues in a whole bunch of countries, all right, you want to be, if you can get American health care, you want it, right? I mean, it's fucking awesome. It's just really fucking expensive.
Yes.
Because we don't have a 3-tiered system. What we need is a concierge system, an insured system, and a subsidized system, right? We need those three. And really, that's just one.
So it's class.
You need class-based economies because they're kind of, and because the difference is that as you have wealth, right, you don't have time,
Right.
and as you lack wealth, you have time, which is fine. That's really the whole game, right? I mean, my productivity per hour versus his productivity per hour. You know what I mean? He's like, dude, if I can get it if it means I've got to wait 3 weeks to get an appointment, or 3
That's right.
months for that matter, right? I mean, that's
it exists. That's how medicine operates in this country, actually.
Yeah.
Because it's like the only thing stopping people from getting the care in a timely fashion is that the insurance company throws impediments in there that slows us down to accomplish the objective while we satisfy the administrative burden, because the patient doesn't want to pay. They want the insurance company to pay.
Right.
They expect the insurance company to pay, but if they pay themselves, they can get
the whole problem we have is it's not open and honest. Because that's the thing in the Singapore model is it's open and honest. You can get it faster if you want to pay for it. Just get your wife and your kids who are in their early 20s to each give a little bit to it. Now you can pay more, and that way you can get, I mean, that's what we need to be doing. Because what you'd have is healthy people saying, oh, they transfer some of their fund over to some needy person. You'd have that shit going on all over the fucking place, right? So the problem is there's no means of doing that, so it's not transparent.
That's correct.
But yeah, it's everywhere. But and it really bothers me. It's like this credentialism everywhere. When I'm like, yeah, there are bad doctors. There are people who make you abuse the Medicare and that's right.
They found this is interesting. They found that the Medicare fraud, right? That Medicare fraud that you can go after the fraud, but it's a marginal return. You spend more chasing the fraud than you save.
Right. Because the only way you solve that problem, of course, is as reward for reporting it. Right. So, and secret shoppers, right? But you can't administrate the cost out of it. You can't administrate thievery out of the process. People, that's the fantasy. Right. But administration is like soft and gentle and nice, right? It's also incredibly expensive and ineffective. But if I just say, if you are aware of any Medicare fraud, the bounty is X percent of or X times the theft, you'd have people turning people in for Medicare fraud. I mean, there'd be an industry, there'd be a whole set of websites to tell medical people, underlings in the medical assistant, how to profit from turning in scam. All right, that's what would happen. And so the chicks would police the whole system. You wouldn't have to do anything. And like, woo, I'm going to try to find a scammer to work for so I can get
right.
Then you'd have the same problem of like, well, he set up the scam because they're fucking on the side, and now she gets the returns, and now they can go live in.
You're thinking like a doctor now, buddy.
Well, I'm just thinking like a criminal, which is not very hard because they're not that complicated. So.
Okay, tie it all together again now. We've sort of decomposed the end of that route.
I have to close a bunch of pop-ups here, excuse me. So, where is I going? Oh, so it's the belief that you could minister, you can claricize or clerisy, goodness is not the same as that's a via positiva versus the negativa of providing people incentives to report. And then you flip it around and say there's no insulation from liability in the chain of custody. In other words, if you have a chick that sends out a bill, she's liable just as much as the doctor. So you want everybody in that chain of custody for the client to be able to do it. I mean, I put people in jail for this. I mean, it was fun too. So I don't want to go down that rat hole. Anyway, so the point being that we can fix the clerical problem.
Very good.
I guess does administration work? Administration works in a high trust society because you presume error. Right.
Okay.
Whereas what the real is via negativa is very cheap. And it doesn't impose a cost. It basically handles exceptions. So
Right.
it's exception handling. Your cost is exception handling. All right. So we were going somewhere where I know there was a point because this whole arc is related.
So we started out with the neurology, the columns, and the neurotropism, and then we're telling a story, and it talks about heads exploding.
So you caught the fun stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. So the part of head exploding that's the index to what we need, is that we have to tell. Why is that so funny? That the index to the conversation most accessible is heads exploding. There's something beautifully adolescent male about that.
Very, very, very adolescent.
It's just
because it's very analogically correct.
It's hyperbole. That's why, because hyperbola is a novelty experience. Yeah, okay.
But it is occurring in the nervous system inside that skull.
Yeah. Well, so
excessive voltage is being displayed.
So, getting back to the problem, we're trying to find. I'll restate the problem.
Right.
We're talking about the introduction. Yesterday we talked about, can we make the introduction story inoffensive enough to minimize head explosions?
That's correct.
Okay. And is that we went on a couple of an hour and a half sojourn.
Yes.
Showing the consistent pattern of neural organization.
Yes.
Right.
Across scales, across all varieties.
All these scales in order to make this point when the point before heads exploding, and between heads exploding and the way of what has to be included in this introduction is the empathizing versus systematizing spectrum, and the fact that it's very difficult to overcome this problem of heads exploding because the feminine cognition, or the feminine left or order of operations is experience or emotions or empathizing first, and then maybe reason if there's any reason to bother. And we work the other way around, which is reason first, and then we analyze emotion, if we analyze emotion at all. And so the problem is the feminine left attributes feelings, which means that they're driven by intentions. Feelings and incentives and intentions to us we don't have because they can't comprehend us. Whereas we can look back at them and say, I see why you're sort of doing that. Makes no fucking logical sense to me, but I can see how a child would come to that conclusion, meaning a liberal. Yeah, see, I walked you right into that, and I'm watching your eyes, looking down at the table. He says, I'm just gonna whack him with this one and see what reaction I get.
I'm just sensing it coming. It's like,
You know what? You knew it was coming. So I don't want to demean the feminine cognition outside of its domain, which we described earlier as rational evolutionary necessary, given that the usual human experience to a crying infant is to throw it off the cliff or feed it to the pigs or something. So we have to have this emotional basis, and we have to be able to extend our emotions to track 4 or 5 rugrats, to empathize where they are at their stage of development, which is why women find children so interesting, is they want to empathize with them at their stage of development, which is, it's also why young women cannot be single over 21 and try to have relationships without them breaking down, because these women are looking for the same emotional stimulation they'd get from a bunch of rugrats, right? From a man who is totally incapable of doing it. And so what they do is they create drama.
Oh,
so that's what's going on.
There's that's an interesting systemic understanding of the problem.
It's really simple. If your nervous system is evolved, nervous systems want to operate at their peak performance without failure. In other words, that's when most Christmas lights go on, and that's when we feel good, was when all the Christmas lights go on up here, right? I think it's neural connectivity, because that's think of that as there's the greatest field of opportunity.
Right.
Right. That's what's happening. It's just we're acquisition machines, and all the Christmas lights go on. Greatest number of associations. The greatest number of associations most of us can have is interpersonal interaction. And so now you add empathizing to that, which is like, okay, how can I get emotion and drama out of this? Well, I mean, when women have that incentive, that emotion, so they can track children, right? And they have that fascination, which I could never understand, with babies and little kids and infants. They just find these things interesting. Like, I look at like a gadget with like a million moving parts. That's like systemically interesting, right? But I mean, I look at a baby and I'm like, can we hang it over the toilet until it can talk? Because it's just a problem, right? And they don't. They think this whole growth process is interesting. And so their emotions are getting exercised. And that's why they have them, right? They have them. But if that resource isn't being used, it's like there's 2 outcomes. They're going to be end up like the rabid lion and rebel, right? Or you're going to end up like the depressed lion and want to die and just give up, which is what animals in zoos do, right? So the problem we have with young women is that they don't have children. They don't even have siblings to take care of to provide that exercise. So what do? They create drama. They create drama for the same person. The way guys go out and look for tools to play with in video games is the same reason girls go out and look for drama. And now they're looking for it from guys. I mean, that's fucking insane. You know who's going to give you that drama? The guy who just wants to fuck with you and ditch you. Because that's his game.
That's right.
You're a fucking idiot, and he's going to play you, and he's going to get the next idiot and play her. Why? Because he knows the bait. Right? He knows the bait. And so the reason he invests in looking, acting,
right,
is because it's bait for you to be stupid, to give up your vagina so that he can have novel vaginas. Because that's all it is, right? So she wants novel drama and he wants novel vaginas. What's the difference? Of course, that's where the dating market's going to go. And of course, it's going to poison the dating market. That's what we are. But I mean, you understand, it's the women who are crazy because they control that. We don't. We can't. We used to control them. We used to. You give a 15 or 16 or 17-year-old girl her first kid, and then by the time she's 22, she's got 3 or 4. That exercise during her adaptive period is being fulfilled. It has good places to go. But you take a woman and you put her into college, put her on the cock carousel, and then put her on then have her come out of college and go on the next carousel plus the drama carousel. And you end up with a 30-year-old woman who has no adaptive capacity, has become purely self-oriented and created.
So there's a selfishness function there. Yeah. And non-adaptive.
We're all selfish, right? The problem is, what did we evolve to be selfish about?
That's right.
Right. And so men, it's like throwing sticks and breaking shit and trying this stuff and whatever. My mother says, I don't understand. I remember I was living in Rochester, New York, in this little apartment when I was 4 years old, right? My father had just bought this company, so we're trying to find a house, live in this place. And for Christmas, I got those styrofoam blocks, right? A whole lot of them. So I would build like these castles, and then I would break them down. And sure. I don't understand why you get so much joy out of breaking them down. And I just couldn't understand why she couldn't get that.
I don't understand.
I'm only 4.
I can't even understand the question, man.
Yeah, I mean, that just like makes no sense. And I'm 4.
And you can't even respond to it. It's so goofy.
Yeah, it's like that doesn't make any sense. Why not? What do you do? Just leave it there?
I don't know. It's beyond me. I don't know.
Breaking shit is fun because what you're doing is you're learning what we need to learn.
Yeah.
You're learning to
build it again.
Real, right? And you just build the fucking thing again, slightly differently, right?
Yeah.
It's like, guys, why do guys do this fucking shit with cars? I mean, that's passing, right? Because cars have gotten to the point where it gets, you can buy components and install them, but it used to be like you take an engine apart, right? I mean,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I used to change, I changed my own water pumps and my own gaskets and the stuff. It was just normal shit all guys did, right? I mean, but it was actually fascinating.
Yeah.
Right. But you like a girl, the kind of fascinating she wants most of the time is some fucking gossip and drama with some other chick so she can get her emotions stimulated the way we get our systematizing stimulated. So it's what's going on is so obvious, right? I mean,
so I got to tie this back a little bit. So what happens is we're talking about your story, right? So we're trying to minimize the in making the story less head explosional, right? We're minimizing the voltage potentials for empathizing arcing, which must occur because the empathizing mind must project onto the rational mind some motivation that doesn't exist. That's why they always project, because they must project because they have to figure out what feeling it is that's causing you to say such an absurd thing. Right?
Because that's where that's why women are logically inconsistent. They're only emotionally inconsistent. And I say women, I mean the female mind, right? There's plenty of men that have female minds, right? I was just talking to one today. Feminine. God damn it. Thank you. I'm trying. You've been trying to get me to do this for like 6 months now, maybe longer. And I still can't get it.
No, that's not correct. It's just, it's the neurons are very well adapted to that other pattern. And we're just
it's one of the many things you were right about that, you can take glory in and,
I know.
Appreciate it. I was right about that too. Yeah.
That too.
You're eventually coming around. I'll get
it's
you.
Okay, Bert. You're doing great. I'm like your therapist, man.
My intellectual therapist.
It's just okay.
Anyways.
Shit. Go ahead.
That was what you were just saying. Something was really smart.
Okay, so I'll repeat it. So what we're trying to do is minimize the empathizing arcing that must occur inside the heads that are likely to explode, that are on the feminine side of the cognitive spectrum.
So the way you have to do that, as far as I know, there's only one way to do it, is they have to be very simple steps.
Okay.
You have to create a narrative. In other words, you have to tell women need stories.
Right.
Men may need facts, because we'll logically align them into a narrative.
Yes.
But women need stories so they can follow the experience. Does that make sense?
Right. And then you simply You simply avoid identities that you are even talking about them generates the arc.
Or that you provide so much context that it's nobody's to blame.
Right. There's no blame.
And that's my goal. Is that I want to make it so this is, well, that's reasonable. Of course I feel that. Of course people would feel that way. That's reasonable. Who does that really well? I was trying to learn from somebody the other day. Oh, it's one of the I was kind of impressed. There's a guy who does Economics Explained.
Okay.
And one of the things I notice about his technique is he explains it all in terms that sound moral and rational and good to you, and then he incrementally falsifies everyone and says what's really happening. And so I really liked his I like his method.
Right.
You're saying wait or great?
No, I said great.
Great.
Right. Excuse me. Right.
Because I've been trying to figure out how do I tell this? So, and of course I've got basically 3 stories here, and I can't show them all on the screen because it's too dense. It's too much. All I would be doing is scrolling 3 different screens or 4 different screens.
We don't have enough meclizine for that.
Yeah, we don't have enough. What do you call it? What's the anti-motion?
Scopolamine meclizine.
No, what Dramamine? We don't have enough Dramamine for that.
That's it.
Dramamine.
Scopolamine.
Isn't scopolamine like one of the? Isn't that a truth serum?
Yeah, you can do that too.
Why did I never get a chance to experiment with all these toys?
I understand.
In the medical profession, you get a chance to experiment with these toys?
Not
you. Do people?
Not that we discuss.
Not that you discuss. Okay.
Okay, I'm not going to elaborate on that. By the way,
no, I was thinking about something else entirely. I wasn't. I would. I would never bait you into such a thing. I would only imply that such a thing happened and you were innocent of
it. Yes, of course. Thank you. Now there's there's 3 stories. What are the 3 stories that you're attempting to weave together?
It's the same problem that we discussed. When do we tell the story from the bottom up? Do we tell the science up? Do we sell the logic up? Let's see, the science up, the logic out, up, the story down, or the ethics outward. It's like, how do you tell this fucking story?
Okay.
And so yesterday I felt like that was a pretty good outline. And I don't know, do I need to revisit it? Is there any reason to revisit?
No.
And so I have this introduction which states the problem. The introduction is the part where we say there are cycles to history and this is the basic pattern to history, and in every great age there comes an age of transformation, right? And so I talk about the ages of transformation.
Yeah.
Right. And then I close with here. The most recent one is the age of transformation over the past 600 years. And we experienced that this most recently as the Industrial Revolution, whatever, etc.
Yeah.
All right. And so I say we have to, and then I describe all the hurdles we have to overcome whenever we go through an age of transformation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Then I go into the crisis of our age, which starts back with this the calculation problem of Babbage, the Industrial Revolution, and all the problems that came about. right,
It's fascinating.
right, and great. Then there's a piece that I don't have up here because it's not in the. It's what do we do about it? What are the, what can we do about it?
That's funny. That's so close to Lenin's title. What is to be done?
Oh God, I might use that just to be.
Just to be a dick.
Yeah.
Write it. I said it first.
Oh, I see what I got wrong here. Hold on a second. I have a drag and drop error.
What's a drag and drop error?
I have I have something out of order, which is causing me to tell you this story incorrectly.
Oh, drag and drop, not drag on drop.
Yeah. I don't have dragons. I might get pretty crazy, but I stay within the sciences.
Good man.
So the introduction, the crisis of our age, and then Yali's question. So what is, what do we do? How did we, we've explained what the problem is, but what do we do now?
Yes.
And it's basically what went wrong and that kind of so yeah, that's basically what went wrong.
Right.
Right. So the crisis of our age, what went wrong? It was historical context is the introduction. Crisis of our age is the explanation of how we got here. The Yali's question revision is what went wrong, and then our next great endeavor is the solution. Right.
That's nice.
Right.
That'll be very nicely done.
And then we go about is how we go about that, and then how we're our next great endeavor is to solve that problem. What the solution is. No, the program. This is what I can say. What the solution is, and then the program's contents. In other words, it's what we're going to cover and why.
Yes.
And then our mission, which is our journey through this program. And then how to read the book. What is this ideology, philosophy? What you'll like and not. Who is the audience? Bias and voice.
That's the primer.
A challenge and the vocabulary and terms. All right.
That'll be good.
All right.
That'll be good.
So does that seem about right to you?
Yes.
Now, so now we got to get to the hard part here. Let me just see.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so under Yali's question revisited,
Yes.
which is what went wrong, which is Yali's question of why do you, white people, have so much cargo and we brown people have none? But the implication is, I don't see the difference. No, he basically means I can.
Oh, yeah. You're just a dude. Dude, where'd you get all the stuff?
Yeah, there's not much difference between you and me. So obviously, so why do you have all this cargo, meaning stuff, and why don't we? Well, the answer is geography. I mean, that's really the only. It's not. If you want to be in the middle of fucking nowhere, the hills of New Zealand is there are more remote places, Antarctica, but you can't live there. And there are even more difficult places to get to, some outlying islands, but they're not enough there to have a population. So you're sort of in the ideal place where there's enough population, enough territory for you to have a population and survive, but you're still too far from anything to be in the information and trade scheme, right? And since you got here, the water, this whole thing about the water, well, it's come up a little bit, and you're kind of fucked now. So I mean, that's all there is to it. There's no other reason. Now, Jared Diamond comes along and says, well, it's not only that, it's that, Europe has the right combination of animals.
Yes.
Like, well, that's true. It's also fucking huge. And it's latitudinal, whereas the Americas are longitudinal, which causes all sorts of fucking problems. So, we have a long space in Eurasia. It's called the Eurasian Plain. And it causes cold above and warm below, and it's sort of like, okay, we can calculate maximums here. I mean, that's really Africa looks like it's this big long thing, but it's really this little strip of green, and oh my god, awful up here, and oh my god, awful down there. I mean, there's no, So I mean, the states are kind of interesting. We got camels and llamas and stuff, but we didn't get, anything. We didn't get some of the other good ones.
Right.
And Australia got the really weird shit.
Yeah, they did. It's a marsupial heaven.
They're just really weird animals down there, and they got spiders and snake. They got a lot of nasty shit there.
Yes.
And kangaroos are bitches.
Yeah, they are.
Funny how and I love how Australians talk about, well, they're just part of the, like you and I would talk about oak trees, they're just part of, or squirrels.
Deer.
Or deer. They talk about them like deer. That's the right answer. Well, they're just part of the landscape, No, they got these claw things. They're bitchy.
They're wicked, man. They're mean and they're big.
Have you seen that great one about the guy punching it? The guy up and punching him in the nose, and he's like, "What the fuck just happened to me?"
Strange critters, man. It's like they move funny because they sit on their tail and kick you. And
well, you also look at the musculature they have. I mean, some of the Joeys, the males, they're just they have amazing musculature. It's like, I don't want
like that. He just rears back. He throws his head back and tries to scratch you.
They have ostriches and emus. They got the same fucking claw thing going on, and they're dumb as a rock and meaner than a snake. As mean as a snake. Yes, if you get involved with them. Anyway, so I was making a point.
Oh, that makes a very good introduction. I think it's going to be most excellent, and it can be. I think it can be pacified.
So, what's not here that's in every other introduction?
What's that?
Is that I've written is what we did right, how we got here.
Oh.
And so, and I don't have that. Like I say what went wrong.
Yes.
But I never say what went right.
Well, is it necessary to say that?
That's what I'm asking. That's my question. That's why I've dragged you through.
Is that what it is?
I've 11:30, 12:31. I've dragged you through 2 hours to ask you this question, which you beat me up about all the time. But I mean, I just feel like I got to create all this context. It's just,
it's just a little more drama.
What?
Just a little more drama.
It's funny. I didn't realize there was a literature in the medical industry about how hard it is to be an autistic doctor as well as an autistic patient. And it's written by an autistic doctor who also had to be a patient. And it's fascinating. And I read this a couple of days, and I realized that's the problem I have with medical care. It's not just me. It's not that medical care is broken.
Okay.
So much as that it is impossible for a neurotypical to grasp an Aspie. And because the problem with Aspiness is there's a lot of related conditions that express in different ways that are often come out as anxiety. It's not really the problem.
Oh, so it seems like something that it is not.
It's not there. And you keep saying, I'm
activity.
not anxious. I had this problem. I'm not anxious. I'm not depressed. Something's wrong. Right. Used to say,
Yeah.
they want to fit you into this thing. And it's like, it's not in my head. I'm not anxious. I'm not depressed. There's something wrong. If I finally have basically a fight with a doctor and he leaves, the nurse comes in and tells me I have cancer. Right. But the reason is, of course, you like my doctor, the reason I went to a concierge doctor is he spent enough time with me. Is like, the problem is you have infinite pain tolerance and a doctor can't read through that. And so it says, Kurt, if you're coming to me, most people would be in the hospital. And so when you go to a doctor, they don't understand what they're seeing.
That's because your fuses are all wrong, man.
Yeah. And so, it's like, I was, or it's why I get so angry with medical professionals because they clearly don't hear me. And I don't.
They're doing some kind of empathizing that doesn't match. They're trying to fit you to a model that don't match.
So I sent him this link. I'll see what he comes out of, because he's not, this like, but he's not as, a fancy doctor. He is a good person. We'll see what he says. But I mean, I didn't realize that literature existed, because now I can sort of share it.
Oh, send me that link too.
Will do.
The I don't know if we need to do what we did right. I don't think it's necessary, because it's like giving away the plot. I don't know. We had this discussion earlier on, and I originally said, well, I'm just going to put the whole fucking summary in the front. And then I realized I can't explain it in the front. Yeah, it's like they'll come out in the body.
Or summarize at the end.
Yeah.
Right. And I think,
yeah.
And so the thing is, when we were talking about yesterday, we were asking, oh, I see. I just answered my question.
See?
That's why I love working with you.
I just helped Kurt find his own answer. That's the most satisfactory answer.
Don't underestimate that value.
That's it. It doesn't have to come out in the beginning, because it's like it comes out and it's too triggering what we did right.
Because you don't have the context.
You don't know enough.
You've got to know. You've got to know a ternary. You've got to know at least 3 means of coercion, institutional sequences, group evolutionary strategies.
It's too many trees got to be explained.
You've got to explain too much before you can say, okay, now we can get to the answer. Explain, well, we go to analysis of civilizations, and we say, well, here's what Europe got right. We got right evolutionary computation. What's the first principle of the universe? Evolutionary computation.
Right.
We got the civilizations at least varies from evolution. But we have to do this extraordinary proof in order to get there.
That's right. You can't understand what went right until you have seen the proof.
So I can take this.
What went wrong is interesting, because it doesn't take much to talk about what went wrong.
Say that again.
What went wrong is easy to talk about, because it doesn't take much explanation, and it's understandable in an analogical form.
Right, but do I include in what went wrong the integration of women into, right?
No, yeah, you do. You do, because it's like this. The what went wrong is essentially very simple. It's like this: the codification of the common law into the United States Constitution is an example of it. And it has failed to incorporate the means by which the common law prevented the misbehavior of women in the polity.
Equally prevented.
Right.
social
But
media.
they did not include it because they never anticipated the incorporation of women in the polity in a more general sense.
They couldn't foresee Darwin, even though they had foreseen deism. They had become essentially empirical scientists, right? They could not see the Industrial Revolution liberating women from the home,
And the industrialization of womanly misbehavior.
and nor the equal freedom of women to express at industrial scale, as their past few hundred years had allowed men to express at industrial scale. Yes. So I can say that.
It's easily sayable and it's not offensive because it's understandable and reasonable.
Yet the common law actually kept this peace, we call the peace. And that's enough, right? I don't need
that's all you need to say, because that's what went wrong. That's all that went wrong. That's all.
And we are in the process of coming to terms with not only the integration of women into these matters, relative equality, but the disruption of our intersexual institutions. We're just generating demand for modification of our extrasexual institutions, basically the politics, economics. And that in this case, we've simply done a pretty good job of suppressing male antisocial, anti-political behavior, but we have not equally suppressed the ability to scale female antisocial, anti-political behavior. And the primary problem here that we are seeking to overcome by education is that it is still, conservatives can understand liberals, liberals can understand conservatives. Like, we just think they're wrong, and they think we're evil because they can't understand us, right? But
no, we have to be evil because that's the only way that you could start with a feeling and end up like we are.
Yes. And so but likewise, women, we can vaguely understand women, even though we think it's childish, but women can't understand us. And they enjoy it when they do get to understand, when they say, no, men are really simple. It's just like, there's a few of them get there and it's like, yeah, exactly. No, they're really simple. They don't care about that. All they care about is you're feminine, right? That's it. Femininity creates a nest, creates a safe place, right?
That's so nice.
It's like, that's it. That's it. That's all they care about. They don't care about anything else except that. And so everything you care about that stuff. They don't care. It's not of value to them. They don't care about your income. They don't care about your profession. They don't care about your makeup. Probably don't care about your fashion. You know, basically what they care about is ponytail, t-shirt and jeans, and sneakers, right? And you know, that you keep the weight off, and that that's it. That's about it. That's it. And men are really simple. And the ones that get it, they're like, yeah, no, it's really easy. You just give them what they want, right? That's all they want.
How hard is this?
And they'll do anything for you because femininity is the only thing they want. It's like so stupid, you know. It's like, and so, you know, and guys, we got to be, you know, and it's like it's like it's so hard for them to get there.
That's interesting. It's interesting.
I was dating a doctor, a woman.
Okay.
Doctor. I didn't tell you. Long distance, didn't work out. And she's like, I don't understand men. It's like, yeah, you do. You just can't comprehend where that.
Can't believe it. It's too simple.
We're talking about a 45-year-old, highly educated woman who's very successful in the field, who's been married and who has children, right? Then they're mature children. I'm like, and you don't understand how simple men are, right? It's because she's in the educational system and in this, and she has this narrative running. And I'm like, you know, she's been through it's just she has this stupid narrative running of equality. No, we're like the fact that we can actually talk together and get along is amazing to me, right? I'll never get over how amazing it is. because you don't realize how, especially like I'm pretty male, you're pretty male, right? I mean, there are guys that are, and there are guys that pander to women to get laid. I mean, it's just, they're the ones I just look at and like, dude, it's a game. I love the game. Right. They just, and this fucking Italian guys. I mean, you got to meet some of them. They're Germanic Italian. They're from the north. They have big full. They're what's the gene pool they're from? I'll think of it in a minute. They have full heads of bushy hair. They're over 6 feet tall, right? And they're beautiful. And you can see the women that are like this too, right? So you see these guys, and that's what they just play this fucking game all life, and they think it's the best game there is.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, it's not. I just flirt with women, and I fuck women, and I kiss women, and we both have fun, and that's all. And you know how it is. You just don't take them seriously and give them what they want, which is attention, right? I mean, and the women are like, I don't know if the women understand it all, but they don't seem to mind it.
They like the game too.
They like the game too, and it's like, and we're trying to build civilization, and you're trying to get laid. I mean, there's a big difference between males like us and males like them. I'm okay with those guys being happy, and basically, if they keep the women busy, that's even better. But I mean, did you hear me? Did you say that came out? But I mean, I'm talking about and then I have another one. All right, this the one that got away. I won't use her name, but this is Xerox PARC, IBM Research, Intel Research. Right, this is a very, very smart, sweet Canadian, attractive woman. Right. Cannot understand, despite that she is a male-dominated industry, can't understand how simple we are. That's because she's gotten rid of her femininity in order to keep the men around her at bay. She stopped.
It slows them down, right? It slows them down.
It slows them down, and so she doesn't want to encourage anything. So she's turned it off, and I'm like, yeah, unfortunately it's not turning me on.
Right? It's crying shame. It's like that is the opposite of the right answer.
And I'm like, God damn it,
it's like you extinguish the pilot light. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, what do they do? What do the feminists do to women? The same thing. They make them masculine and what happens is they stop being feminine. Whereas femininity.
No, they do an emulation of masculine,
right?
Which is non-feminine and not masculine. It's just no pilot light. It's like.
So I don't know.
It's a crying shame.
Women hear this, and like the problem is you find if a woman is 40 years old, has been through the dating market, and she's been married, divorced, had kids, and is in the dating market, and she realizes it's failed, you can reach those women. But you can't reach a woman who's been through the propaganda system
hasn't bottomed out yet.
So anyway,
you made me sad.
I can address the cause of the problem, the failure. Right? I can address the failure.
In clinical terms, just
clinical terms.
No,
I can do it. Can I address this inability to understand one another? In other words, where can I address? Where do I address this fundamental issue?
This is fascinating to me because it's like this. This is essential to make explicit in the introduction, I think.
Yes.
Which is the looking at where it goes in this crisis of our age problem.
Yep.
And it goes in there. What went wrong? Okay. It goes in what went wrong. And it goes before what went wrong because it explains to the reader. This is good.
Okay, I got to catch that.
You explain to the reader the cognitive spectrum between feminine and masculine, and how come the feminine cognition projects upon the masculine systematization motives which do not exist because of the way they think. And that takes the sting out of the excessive voltage and will prevent the heads from blowing up.
Okay, so do I have to talk about, where do I put that in all this?
I will put it right in when you talk about Yali's question.
Yeah, but there's Yali's question lists all the what went wrong. And then I go through. Okay, let's assume I'm going to talk about the law part. What went wrong with our Constitution and law?
Yes.
Right. Do I say that before that or after?
I would say that you before that. You discuss it, and it's like this is cutting to the science of why people's heads are going to want to explode when they read this. Because there is going to be a projection from the feminine cognition upon the masculine systematization which is presented, attributing motivation by emotion which does not exist. And this is a phantom, an error, and a misrepresentation. So you now, it's like this. When you think I'm evil, or whatever you think I am, Nazi, that's you projecting on me what does not exist.
I think I see it.
And then you can explain all of it, but you've taken the sting out of it because now they suspect their thinking as being the cause of why they think you're a Nazi or whatever. And it will prevent the head from exploding. You've defused the bomb.
Boy, can I do that without? That's the equality problem.
What's the equality problem?
Well, that's it, right? The attempts to enter women into economy, society, and polity, or economy and polity at least. Economy, academy, and polity. That's the right answer. Led to a demand for equality and an attempt to justify it, equality. And it was false. And this is what.
Oh. So this is the introduction to that part of what went wrong.
Yeah, I think it's. I think that's the. Well, I mean, I don't know if it's the introduction, but it's one of the topics in there. I mean, there's. I have. I'm not going to go over them here, but I have like 30 things I list that went wrong. And I think I should categorize them. And
okay.
I think I can bring it in as. I think I can bring it in as the Industrial Revolution. Let me just check on something here. You see what I'm getting at? Professor age, the introduction.
Of course, you're not sharing your screen, you are aware.
Well, yeah, because I'll just drive the audience nuts.
Okay.
Yeah, I just say what went wrong. The question is, do I need? Yeah. Yeah. I'm missing a piece here between Yali's question and next grade endeavor. What did you call it? New document. What do you say Lenin said?
And what is to be done?
What? Or is it what must be done or what is to be done?
What is to be done? That was a rude hat tip. I like that.
So I put that. Where are you? You are this kind of template.
Yeah.
And you are after, where are you?
Written in 1901 by D.I. Lenin.
This is
Burning questions of our movement.
why can't I make this work?
What is that? Oh, you're having
There's something wrong here.
yes, sir.
It doesn't want to see this as a, this is blah, blah, blah. What kind of document is it? Excuse me 1 second. Please forgive me in this, but there is no way to get at that. So it must be the wrong kind of document. So I need to trash it. Okay, so new doc. And are you there? Yes, thank you. That was nice of you. All right, so introduction, right? And it comes into, and what did we call this? What must be done?
What is to be done? What is to be done?
I'm going to put sarcasm in here. And I'm going to choose the right template. And that's right. And allow comments. Yes. Publish. Replace comments. Okay. This allows, I love this new toy I've got, which allows us to create Q&As underneath one, which is and I publish that. And then I go over here. I'm sorry, I'm doing this is why I say the audience, not all of the stuff I do here. It's going to be fun to watch. The year on course of large question decorating endeavor protocol. What is to be done?
What is to be done?
What is to be done? Lenin, our next great endeavor. Okay, if I go back to the main layout, main dictionary, what I should find is this, and I move it over there. We should be back cooking with gas. There we are.
Well, I'm very pleased by this conversation. I learned a lot today. And it's like it's not like learned a lot, but like able to incorporate it in a new novel way that is has explanatory power and makes me understand the world a little better.
So can you help me with that? Because I'm sure I can learn something from what you just said. In other words, I think I can assuage some of my anxiety over whether this is going to be communicable or not.
It is, the issue is this understanding the natural feminine intuition, instinct, behavior of projecting emotionality upon the masculine cognitive thinkers, which I did not understand till today.
Really? Fascinating.
I did not understand why, because it's like I saw them doing it, but I did not understand why they're doing it.
It's so simple, really. That's the reason.
Just stupid simple. It's like, of course they do that because that's how they process all information.
It's like I keep covering this and you and I talk about it a lot, but it's like you have to say something 100 times before the audience gets the full meaning of it, right? But when we started doing the sex differences, right? That's obvious. When we start doing sex differences and lying, then it becomes really fucking obvious, right? These differences behave, right?
Right.
Because, talking about how people feel is one thing. Talking about the evidence of how they lie, cheat, and steal, right, or coerce, lie, cheat, and steal, right, is pretty different. Interesting, exposes that difference in thoroughly. And so it's not coming, it needs to come across. This is one of the things I asked you about either last week or the one before, is what are the key things I got to receive, key insights, that the sex differences isn't equality is suicide. It's the sex difference maximizes this time space of evolutionary computation, as long as we can still discover means of cooperation exchange within it. Right? That's the problem. So it's not that being unequal is a virtue, is a problem. It's the asset, not a asset. It's the asset.
Paradoxically, right? It's the
So,
opposite of what the lefties are seeking. The feminine cognitive mind thinks it's looking for something that is suicidal.
right. So the deep question is, no matter what we do, can the feminine line grasp this? Can the feminine mind ever really understand that that mathematics and science, logic and science and social science are a continuum?
That was a joke. Because it's like this. The feminine mind won't care because they'll get more shit because Yali wants the cargo more than he wants to be right.
I'm gonna go hang myself.
What?
I'm gonna go hang myself and give up.
Why?
It feels like that. Who is saying the same?
Because it's like this. The chick is gonna be attracted to the guy with the cargo, man. That's just how it goes. And
I don't care about that.
What is it?
What I care about is that in public, to the public, and matters public contains self-auditing. I like redheads, it's not gonna fucking change. Right?
Okay.
Or some little dark brunette, blue-eyed, light-skinned, 108-pound Russian woman came over to me tomorrow. I just turned into a drooling mess.
I understand. I understand.
I don't have control over that, and I don't want to, and there's no need. On the other hand, if I have silly ideas that I extend beyond the range of my preferences into claims of goods and truths, then I'm engaging in a problem. So the question is, can we get women to distinguish between their preferences, which are reasonable means of expression, and goods and truths? You understand what I'm saying? Can you get women to do that? And I
don't think so.
Well, I mean, this is the fundamental hard question. Either we can get women to do that, or they can't play politics.
No, I think you're the issue is this is yeah, I'm of the opinion that along the spectrum of cognitive styles, feminine to masculine, that there's a fragmentation of, say, 30% can't.
Correct.
And those are mostly women.
Yes.
The middle third, maybe.
I'd say a third of women and 10 to 15% of men, maybe less. 15% of men.
So it's like this, but right. The middle, maybe, and the top third, certainly.
The middle, maybe, but they won't care. That's the thing about the middle, is as long as everything works and people are getting along, it's fine. That's how the middle is.
But the bottom third is never.
They're crazy, which is okay, They're crazy chicks put out. I mean, there's a good thing about it. Sorry, I had to. I just had to. It was sitting there. I just had to.
Oh my Lord.
Say irredeemable. Absolutely irredeemable.
But it's like this, there's a public health hazard. It's that's what I have to say about that matter.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about this. It's kind of funny. Somebody sent me a link about sex differences interpreted. It's a link where they're interviewing guys and girls about what's creepy when you approach. I don't think I've ever found it attractive when a woman hit on me. I don't think that's ever happened. I think it's kind of creeped me out every single time. And I say, hey, my friends and I are getting, the friendship thing works. But I think hitting on me has creeped me out every fucking time. I can't think of a time it didn't. It might have happened, I don't remember. But it might also be that I'm in usually almost always in LT long-term relationships. So my radar is off, but
right. It's like this clueless.
I want to be clueless, but I mean, I can't every time a woman.
All right, I'd say this. It's like this. It's like what I would regard it as this. So women are trying to avoid responsibility. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like this. So you don't register the subtle clue of interest. And so the woman amplifies the signal until you get it.
Yeah.
And it's like this. It's like you're like, what in the hell kind of crazy behavior is that?
Well, it's like different.
That's like a rabid dog.
If you're friends with a woman and you've been out all night and you've socializing, because this has happened, right? I married this one. She said, is it okay if I ask you if we can have sex? That was it. And she was just trying to make sure I wasn't offended. Right? Of course I said yes, because I thought she was awesome. That's okay, because we've had the whole socialization, friends, spend, whatever. But when one of your employees comes up to you, some chick, she's hot, right? And she says, why don't you come over and I'll draw us a bath and we'll go.
Oh my.
And I'm like, it's just fucking creepy. I don't know how to describe it. I just find it, I don't find it sexy at all or attractive.
I had a similar date. Okay. And this date was like this. So I go on this date. I'm going to get some pizza or something. And it's like this. Chick's driving. She goes, you can do anything to me you want. And I'm like, oh, damn, I'm not interested in it because I'm not interested. Like, because
I've heard that, and I like that when it's like I've got her about ready to explode, right? Then I want to hear that, right? Because that means victory. I achieved my objective as a male lover, right? I mean, if you get a woman to say that to you who normally doesn't say that kind of thing, okay, victory, right? The accumulated skill I've tried to develop through tricking you crazy women out for the past years, it's working, right? That's okay. But out of the fucking blue,
wait. First date.
Oh, that's fucking crazy.
That's what I said. Yeah, just take. I said I can do anything I want. Take me home.
Yeah,
just take me the fuck home.
Yeah, because that means any woman that has that kind of questionable behavior has other questionable behaviors.
Off the chart crazy.
I don't want to know you, right?
Yeah, I'm done.
Whereas I can see plenty of guys like, ooh, I'm like, nah, that's just asking for pain. I suppose the difference.
It'll be at the health department.
Yeah, or just the crazy, and have that might just be like you said. She wants to communicate that she's really into you. That's just so. I'm saying this for a reason. Is that if you look at the dating market, of course, women are reacting to what they consider creepy on them. On a ridiculous level, because first of all, the dating market breaks down. Guys resort to what they call game, which is the numbers game, right? And then all of a sudden that breaks it down further. Then social media happens, and then COVID happens, and it's like, okay, how are we socializing? So you're sorting into affinity groups already, so that by mere association with friends and coworkers, you've already sorted into an affinity group. So because of you're in an affinity group and you have some proximity, you're aware of each other. And so you have some socialization. So you know that there's some sort of fit. But I mean, like, to me, it's like, that shit is always good. It's like I got another fucking Italian friend. All right, he's like, you grew up in Italy, you grew up with the same 30 or 40 kids. By the time you're in a junior in high school, you've all fucked each other, right? Because that's all there
Right.
is,
That's right.
right? And so it's that whole thing of there's all this socialization, and so who's a fit, right? Who's a candidate fit, right? Well, I mean, if you grow up 30 kids together or whatever it is, right? I mean, my school is probably 80 or 100, right? You all know each other, right? I mean, it's not like any mystery. It's like, and it's not a risk to say, you actually know she's going to say yes. Like, in my case, I never fucking knew the answer. Usually it's she tells one of her friends that tells one of your friends that says, hey, so and so is interested. I mean, I can't, until I get to college, that's every girl I dated, had sex with, at least. So socialization is gone. So of course you're getting creeped out. It's the same thing as me being hit by a woman in a bar. I mean, first of all, I would never date a woman I met in a bar, because that's just a fucking negative symbol in the first place. And contrary to popular belief, unfortunately, I would never have sex with a woman in my company, because it's just all at me, unless it's my wife, which means that's just a fucking disaster waiting to happen, right? That's just drama waiting to happen. I guess for some people, getting laid is worth the risk of drama, but for me, it's certainly not worth it.
No drama, damn it.
And so
certainly not in where you're working. God.
That's insane. And the problem is, like I've told you before, is that, I have these hot little secretaries running around. Everybody, after I got rid of my ugly one, I hope she doesn't ever find out I just said that. Got rid of my ugly one. I had little secretaries. They assume I am, except that they're banging everybody else in the company but me. Right? It's just always that kind of fucking thing. You can't goddamn win. I just like
rule number one, brother.
You can't. Well, I mean, it's like the successful white male thing, the successful white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male. Forget it. You can't fucking win on any social grounds. You might win in every other ground, but you can't win socially, because you're always assumed that the power you have is misapplied. It's like, no, the reason you don't misapply power is a pain in the fucking ass.
You're gonna have to work to clean up the mess.
I got enough fucking problems. I got lawsuits and bankers and investors and employees and customers.
You're looking at the downside.
Drama isn't the problem. I got a wife will screw me at any time. Who cares?
Honestly, downside risk is the issue, right?
Yeah, it's just this is the issue, right? Sorry, I was trying to make the desocialization argument. And I've made the women misbehavior argument. I've explained why that's happening. I've explained the desocialization and creepiness argument. But what I haven't explained is the boredom argument. Hasn't explained the utility and boredom argument. By the 70s, we converted marriage to a relationship for fun. And now it's for fucking entertainment. In other words, compatibility for shared experiences is what happened in the 70s. And what's happened in the 00s to now is that it's for entertainment, not even shared experiences. Right? People are just trying to have sex or be entertaining. And then you add that women want this entertainment as drama, not all of them, right? And I think I view this as a class problem, but I need evidence of that.
I just find it interesting that you have to anti-Naxalt it every time. Not all women. Come on now. That's for all the sensitive viewers.
That thing which is manifest in the distribution we call women. Anyway,
Kurt, did we do good work today?
We did good work today. So did I get to? Yeah, I got to friendship, to entertainment, and the problem is we're not that fucking entertaining.
We're boring.
People are boring pretty quickly. So that the recipe, the trajectory we're on, is just disposable relationships.
Hookup culture. Hookup culture. Hookup culture is the name of it.
That's the end result before collapse, of course. All right. So,
well, I think we're there. It's exhaustion of opportunity here this is what I sense so this is like curling back towards the introduction here, which is the crisis of our age is the exhaustion of opportunity.
Okay, I got it. Have I got that? I think I might have that. The exhaustion. I'm going to add it to the end here.
Because it's an opportunity of industrialization, and then the feminization of the economy, academy, polity, with justification for equality, and the exhaustion of that potential is where we're at.
Oh, that's actually a great argument. We have already exhausted the opportunity of the introduction women into economy and academy and polity, and it's producing negative returns. Okay. I think given the long list I have here,
Yes.
into answering what went wrong, Yali's question,
Yes.
I'll probably have to. I'm not going to be able to answer all these.
That's okay. My presumption
I
is
might be able to make a sentence or a paragraph.
Yeah.
I don't need to be more than that. Okay. So what go ahead.
It's an appetizer for the rest of the book.
Yeah, well, that was my hard question. Can I say this female thing without causing heads to explode?
Wait. That was not appropriately phrased that way you phrased that question. It's,
well, I know. Well, I mean,
I'm gonna edit it.
If I get to talk about heads exploding
I know.
in absolutely positively juvenile terms,
Yes.
I get to frame the female thing in
I know, but
juvenile
it's
terms, don't I?
no,
Don't
no,
I get that privilege?
No, your sentence, your question was not properly formulated, because it's not like you're going to prevent all heads from exploding. It's just like you're going to prevent enough heads from exploding. Not too many heads will explode. Just enough is okay.
The left doesn't matter, only the middle.
That's correct. It has to be reasonable. We can prevent the middle heads from exploding. The crazies will be crazy. And they won't read the book anyway because it's just evil.
Well, I mean, it also makes sense is that if you look at the curve of history, the men are always opening the opportunity where the women later come behind, right? And seize that opportunity. So, I mean, it's just the Industrial Revolution happened and all this stuff. And now women are in. And so that the opportunity for that advancement is narrowing. And so now we're starting to see the effects of trying to overdo it. I mean, it's not complicated, right? I mean, in historical context, it's functioning like every other market in the world ever has, right? You see, you exploit a market until either the opportunities exhausted and additional attempts to exploit the opportunity result in negative returns, externalities. All right. Well, we had a great talk today.
I enjoyed it. I sent you the Russian for Lenin's book title. I can't read it because I don't speak Russian. I don't know how to read their alphabet very well. Very good. Very good. So another successful episode number 2075. Hit that button, that button, that button, and that button. And don't forget to leave the comments below.
Is today a Scotch or beer day?
That's a good question. We will have to answer that one because I am not prepared to answer that.
I think it's a Corona and lime day.
Very nice.
It's a state Corona and lime day.
Beautiful. That sounds wonderful.
Love you, man.
All right, Kurt. You take care now.
Goodbye.